Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Stimulus Sundays. As you know, I'm your host, Dion Stokes, and I have been graced with the pleasure of meeting with Clarence. Now, let me make sure I'm pronouncing your last name correct. Is it Hulse?
Hulse like impulse.
Hulse. There we go.
No, Hulse. Hulse like impulse.
Hulse like in Pulse. I used to live on a street when I was in college, and it was Hulse, and it was spelled very similar except for with a Y. And so every
Okay.
time I see your name, I'm like, but thank you so
uh,
much for meeting with me today. I so appreciate it. As you all know, Stimulus Sundays is our opportunity to have free webinars and conversations, very organic conversations about how we're going to get back to business after this pandemic. I am concerned, just like everyone else, of how we're going to transition, what it's going to look like, and what our new normal is going to look and feel like. And so thank you so much for meeting with us today. I so appreciate it. And I want to be able to get to know who you are and what you do.
my name is Clarence Hulse. I'm the executive director of Michigan City Economic Development Corporation. And so, which means I work for a small city in Northwest Indiana, about an hour outside of Chicago. My role is to recruit companies, assist local companies, assist small business, help with the workforce development in our community, work in a number of large multifamily real estate projects, and advise the mayor and council on different economic development activities, and currently involved in COVID recovery. And that makes for a very interesting conversation.
Doesn't it? Because what does that mean? You know what I mean? It's recovery means so much to so many in so many different facets. But when you talk about economic development, I think that this is the one thing that we're all most concerned about is our economy. How are we going to actually be able to put all of these pieces back together? You know, it's a big question.
Big question and lots of moving parts. Typically, in most disasters, 9/11, having worked in South Florida, hurricanes, tornadoes, even after a riot, after I work, there's a start date and an end date. And so
Right.
you can plan post recovery, post disaster recovery. Unfortunately, with this pandemic, there's no end date in sight. We have got a number of regulations, and we ease them as we go along. And so
Mhm.
we're having to work with social distancing and other health issues and hygiene. And so it's not a normal post recovery. We're
Right.
still doing we're still having the effects of the pandemic, but at the same time trying to get back to whatever normal is. And so that
Mhm.
makes for a very delicate balance of balancing public health, but also balancing the economy restart.
Yeah, yeah. I live in Louisville, Kentucky, very close to Indiana, and there is a city in Indiana that has decided to open up their mall. And I have a lot of opinions about it because as a business consultant, I look at the fact that the last time I was open, I was just introducing my spring line of clothes. Now I'm going to open this mall. I'm going to order new clothes. I knew this was coming, this day was coming. So I ordered new inventory. I'm doing all these things. And yesterday they were open for 7 hours and had 15 individuals come to the mall, period. Not to a store,
Mhm.
to the whole mall. And it's it's one of those things. It's just like I want to be able to get back to work, but imagine what that store felt like day one, to know that I've now spent so much money on my inventory. We're talking about economic recovery. This is I'm utilizing hopefully my stimulus relief funds to be able to replenish some of the things that I've lost, to bring back my furloughed staff, to do all of these things. So I have staff, I have lights, I have merchandise, and I have nobody to come in and shop. What are we looking at whenever we're talking about how we are as an economy are going to be able to do this reciprocal thing? I have, you want, you come in, you purchase. How's that going to look, even especially in the area of real estate, and I mean, sorry, retail going forward?
Well, part of the new normal is virtual shopping. I mean, e-commerce has been going on for a while. It's gone leaps and bounds with, of course, Amazon and those other e-commerce type corporations. But moving forward, I think one of the number one thing that any storefront business owner with brick and mortar has got to consider is personal space and safety. If you
Those
can
two.
give all the stimulus checks in the world, but if I don't feel safe going out, I'm going to sit home and spend it. I'm not going to come to your place of business. So that's one of the things we've been talking about locally here is how do we make people feel safe to go shop, number one. How do we make people feel safe to go back to work? Because currently the PPP says is for rehiring people. Over three-quarters of the money given to a small business or even business is to get people back to work. Well, your unemployment check hangs upon you going back to going back to work. If you decide not to go back to work and you have an open offer on the table, you will not get an unemployment check.
Right.
And so some employees are having issues because they're concerned about their personal health safety. And so we're working with the local hospital to put out some flyers on how to for manufacturers, for office settings, for retail, for restaurants, because if your employees don't feel safe, they won't come back to work. If your customers don't feel safe, they won't come to your place of business. So that's not something I thought about until 2 weeks ago. And I'm more and more, I'm seeing it pop up, public health, safety, personal space, hygiene. So more than ever, because before I was more hoping to look at it virtual and technology and how to get people back on working and spending money. But more and more people are, when they, as we relax the rules and we're telling people going to go back to work, they're like, well, is it safe?
Yeah. Is it safe? Is it safe?
Yeah.
And, it's so interesting. I have not shared this with you, but I've had the pleasure of visiting your city before. And I noticed, just being there as a visitor on vacation, your restaurants have space, so if I had to reduce my seating by like maybe 50%, it's going to hurt. You know what I mean? Like, let's be very clear. But there are some cities like Louisville, like Chicago, that have restaurants that have seating for 20, but that's because there's one communal table and everybody sits down together and we kind of bread in this, so can you please speak to specifically restaurants on their economic development? What kind of things outside of the known safeties, no contact delivery, what are some of the things that you're seeing individuals do to be able to make it safe?
Restaurants restaurants in the retail sector and hospitality are probably the most affected. They're down to a 95% loss of business if they have not closed yet. And the projected number is 30% closure of restaurants. That's not a very good picture looking from an economic standpoint. Over the past 6 weeks, the first thing that people started doing, which was very creative, was curbside delivery and curbside pickups. So that has kept some people averaging about 20% of what they normally do for the month. That kind of pays some of the bills. It doesn't pay all the bills. And so it means you got to go back and renegotiate your lease with your owners, and you probably have to lay off or furlough some people. I've seen that a lot. I've also seen where a lot of the chefs are getting creative. They're going online on Facebook and showing how to prepare their meals. So they're creating a following now. So people will want to come and order more food from them, and they're having specials and talk about their food and how they prepare their food. So I'm seeing that more. I've seen people selling cards, gift cards for future purchases. But still, I mean, you go to a restaurant because you want the experience of sitting down, enjoying your food with your friends, having fellowship, having a cold concoction. And so right now a lot of states aren't even allowing alcohol to be sold, including Indiana. You can pick up your food, but you can't go in. And they're looking to open up I think up to 25% of the restaurant can open this week, but still not allowing alcohol. Well, that's where most restaurants make that money. So I foresee a lot of large restaurants probably are going to either, if not close, change their model. I don't foresee cheap food for a while. Restaurants for a long time, because they want to have a following, have actually discounted their food. And of course, because of the way they pay the employees, the waiters, they can discount their food. So in the future, it may mean having waiters and other support staff being paid a full wages and benefits, in which means the food cost will rise. The food cost will rise naturally because of the supply chain.
Wow, that's interesting.
Because the supply chain right now has been severely disrupted.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so when you get the food from overseas or even from across the United States, it's been disrupted. So
Hmm.
you and I are going to feel like costs at the grocery stores right now as we speak,
Yeah.
and all the restaurants are going to feel like costs going up. So besides just the natural cost of doing business and the food supply being disrupted, for them to stay alive and to the next 12 to 18 months, they're going to have to raise all the food prices.
The food prices. It's so interesting when you were saying that. I was going to say, I work for, and I was going to say, well, no, I used to work for. We've currently, all of our clients we're on sabbatical, or on pause with, with all of them. But we used to have the pleasure of working with a super farmer who is in that same position. Yes, my need is in demand, but marketing, business development, marketing, and the like is a very luxury product, to be able to have. So of course, we were one of the first individuals to go, but they are seeing that their staff don't feel safe at work. They don't feel, they're looking at hazard pay and things like that, but still being able to come to work.
Mm-hmm.
They've had to negotiate a lot of deals with their manufacturers that have either had strikes or have employees that are not showing up, and so they're delivering products that are not being received. And so that's becoming an issue. Our whole ecosystem, the
It's
whole thing.
disrupted because this is not something we've ever really planned for. Like I said,
No,
we're used to having a disaster and then recover full speed ahead.
sure.
And this is slow and go because
Yeah,
there's so much uncertainty in the health system, uncertainty with the economic system, and also within the employment sector in terms of going back to work, the PPP, the stimulus checks, lots of uncertainty, and of course, the lack of political leadership across the country. We're
absolutely.
seeing some great rising stars. We've seen some people who probably should never been in office, which is a whole nother discussion. But so in the future, when you elect your mayors and governors and all that,
Keep this in
you're
mind.
going to be real careful.
Keep this date in mind. Because you see who kind of steps up to the plate and then who is
Exactly.
kind of cowered or
Exactly.
floundered,
Yeah.
at this opportunity. You focus a lot in economic development, and there is a lot of emphasis on individuals who are not able to pay their bills at this time.
Mhm.
Here in Louisville, and I'm sure this is resonant in your area as well, individuals that live in low or reduced income housing are being affected in different ways. Job placement, then then that trickles down to being able to afford their housing. What are some of the things that you're seeing that are being done to help individuals who are facing eviction, who have been evicted or were already facing eviction before pandemic, and so now they're even more into a decline? What are we doing in that area, where we're seeing a large issue?
Well, I mean, in the issue of paying your bills, there's people having problems, both low income, middle income, across the board.
Everybody,
But
yeah.
one of the things we've seen is the state putting a stay on eviction. So that's a temporary band-aid in terms of, yes, the next 2 or 3 months, 6 months, we can't do that, but the bills are piling up. So at some point, you may get evicted.
Yeah.
I must say that all the local nonprofits have stepped up. The United
Absolutely.
Way, the folks in housing have stepped up in trying to giving people monies for rent, food, medical supplies, PPP supplies,
Mhm.
but also helping them to survive, so to speak.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, we had a whole phone call about getting people back to work and how to get them back to work. Because
Mhm.
if you've been living, really at minimum quality of life, I call it, where there's basically eating, how to paying your bills, and then you got to get back to work. How to make sure that they can survive at work. And so we had that discussion yesterday with the folks with the social services, make sure people who can make a phone call and get that help. But that's one conversation, is helping people.
Yeah.
And because we always talk about people who that live from check to check, here's the
Yeah.
next thing: a
Yeah.
lot of businesses have lived from check to check. That's why they're
Oh.
failing.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
So this
Check.
has actually really put a damper on a lot of small businesses who have lived from check to check. So moving forward, those who survive, we got to start doing some real business planning and having cash flow and reserves and those kind of things, because we see people buying and doing business and doing stuff, but they don't get their bills paid that month. They could be out of business. Well, before
Absolutely.
we took it for granted, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of business that are living check to check.
Leaving check to check. And it's kind of like your slip is showing now, right? Because
Exactly.
honestly, whenever you talk about getting back to work and what that looks like for a small business owner. So I love using myself for example, because I'm just very transparent. But, you have an office space, you have a printer, typically you're renting that printer, you have toner and copiers, da, 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 da. Then you have coffee. Oh, well, we have to have an espresso maker. So we have an espresso. All of these resources and things and computers and Ethernet and Google Fiber and blah, blah, blah. Now it's time to go back to work. I've been doing this successfully with the majority of my staff while they're still working on a full-time or part-time basis. When it's time to go back and I'm looking at these expense reports, which I did this morning with my financial advisors and accountant, these line items are so easy to just say, yeah, not doing that anymore. Yeah, office, why? I'm in my dining room. It suits me well. You know what I mean? What is going to happen to office buildings who are accustomed to companies being able to occupy them when we've gotten accustomed to, and we're continuing to get accustomed to, creating a new type of work environment?
That's going to probably be one of the biggest change for those who don't need to be at the office, not being at the office. Case in point, I'm out from Chicago, Groupon headquarters. They are putting up for lease 130,000 square feet. They just laid off about 900 people. They don't need it anymore. And so you'll see a lot of large office spaces being shrunk. And you'll see people who have to travel once or twice a week to the office for a FaceTime and meeting. Even but you don't have to go to a meeting. It's that's more of a personal one-on-one as opposed to being on Zoom. But moving forward, you'll probably see a lot more co-working space where you can share space and use at different times. That will push technology, 5G and everything else we're talking about, though. But having fiber across the whole community in your homes and other locations like that, which will bring the need for training and people in that sector. But I mean, one of the reasons why I focus on business a lot is because unless business get back on track, you can't provide employment. And that's where we've been really focusing on small business, because that small business is the heartbeat of America. They hire the most people. And so every company is below 50 employees. We've been really focusing on them and trying to figure out how to get them stabilized and back operational, because once they get back operational, people will start coming back to work.
Yeah, they will.
And then they can start, rethinking their financial plan for their future, because that was a good time. If you got caught, flat-footed, and you got another 20 years to work, that was a good time to think about, okay, there's the future of work and the future of me, and you're selfish and start your financial plan for your future, because this happens again or in some form or fashion. You need to be ready and have your own resources, your network, and where you can actually survive and ride it out and come back on the other end a success.
And be successful. It's so interesting that you say that, because, we were talking about housing and you made the clarification, which is very important, that all individuals are being affected, no matter if you live in low income or high income, if there's such a thing, housing. I've seen individuals that are C-suite executives be laid off of their position. I'm sure that some of those 900 people at Groupon were not just working, in a packaging, putting a stamp on an envelope position. These were people that were making, zeros. And, we're talking about this pivot, this idea of, now what? I thought I had security in this, and so now I really want to talk about hope. We've offered perspective on restaurants, small businesses, large companies, but now it's time to talk about hope. What are some of the strategies that you can leave us with to be able to know that, we're not alone. We know that. But, what are some real strategic things that you may be able to leave us with that we can start doing as small business owners to start getting ready for the end of this, or for whatever it looks like? It may resurface, it may ebb and flow, but what should we do? What should we be doing?
Well, if you're a small business and you had to close down, now's a good time to revamp your business plan and focus on what you do well.
Yeah.
All the other extraneous things you used to do that wasn't paying, but you'd be trying to, be nice to other people. You probably cut those services.
Yeah.
You got to focus on what makes the money to keep your doors open. And you also got to look at revamping your balance sheet. Look at things that were nice to have and what things that you really need. And that's a tough, very tough, because you got great employees, you want to keep them, you want to make them happy. That's a very tough thing to do because the next 12 months you'll be surviving. And so you got to start looking at making those cuts now, not 6 months from now. And then some companies will have to lay some people off. And again, those are all tough conversations to have. But yeah, you're either going to have a business or you're not going to have a business. That's what it comes down to. And the tough part of it is the market's going to get really tough. I see unemployment rate shooting up. So, if you're unemployed, now is a good time to look at your skill sets and upskill. But for a small business, look at the balance sheet, look at the business plan, look at technology. Can your services be delivered online? And how can they get that experience virtual and they come back to you? That's tough for a restaurant.
Yeah. Tough to impossible.
That's something you can do for products, or something you can do. Restaurants, you kind of have to be there. And so I know that people are doing delivery and curbside, but if you're a white tablecloth, you don't do delivery, you don't do curbside. So
nothing worse than a filet mignon in a to-go box. Doesn't translate.
You have to look at working on your customer service. So you provide top-notch customer service, create an experience that people want to come to your facility for. So when they come to your dining room, it's an environment they want to come back to. So that means spending money on training and paying people better. So that after you invest in training, it's an investment you made to keep that employee long term. Because I go to a certain restaurant because of people who are there. When I go there, how they treat me and they make me feel, I'm going back over there.
That's
true.
So
you got to create an experience. That's what Disney does. They create an experience you want to go back to. So restaurants got to look at creating an authentic experience moving forward. Then for business that provide products and services, customer service will be key moving forward. And I don't mean to, in terms of just saying it, you really got to be there for people and provide services above and beyond what you normally do. Service delivery over the internet is going to be key. I know people love to cut marketing, but you're going to have to go back and look at marketing. Maybe it's more targeted, but you have to put some money in the budget to let people know who you are, and then focus on a clientele in the future. So I guess to be fair, you were probably looking at probably 12 to 18 months to move out of this because we don't have an end date. There's talk of a possible flare up in the fall, which makes people scared. And so I think the next 6 months, you'll see people kind of hold back and not want to do very much, which is going to affect the economy. I think if you find a vaccine, I think people will probably tend to do a lot more faster because they've got something you can, stick a needle in your arm and you'll do better. Right now, because we don't know what this thing is, and it affects people across the board, no matter what age or race or whatever, except for us in the dense community, we get a little more than the norm. But for the most part, it's hitting the whole country across the board. And so I think do we find something that can alleviate that? That's why I mentioned earlier in the conversation, safety, health safety is going to be a big issue moving forward in terms of public health and hygiene.
Yeah. It's so interesting because just like marketing was the first to go, we're the first to come back because everyone is saying, and what we're really trying to explain as loudly as possible to individuals is whomever your target market was before, that's changed. And so we do forensic marketing. So we want to understand who are you selling your widget to? How much are they willing to pay for it? Where are they shopping? How often do they shop there? Are they purchasing other items? All of those things are the kind of marketing questions that we ask, we find answers to, and then we offer a solution to the consumer. And that is exactly, and of course, and I'm very biased, but that's exactly what everyone needs at this point is whomever you thought was your target market before, that's gone. That person, that whole buyer persona is out the window. So it is time to start planning what those next 6 months are going to look like, because you're going to have it's going to look different. You know what I mean? So how willing are individuals to meet with you this way and the like?
It's also a great time to look at new opportunities because we discovered that we depend on the rest of the world for everything else. And so now it's a good time to look at those products and services that we could not get in time,
Mm-hmm.
and are they're going to be made back on the mainland. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you're a manufacturer or you are in distribution, now is a good time for you to figure out that supply network within the country to make sure you
Mm-hmm.
can have just-in-time delivery for people who need those services and products. And so
Yeah.
now is a good time to look at that strategy to figure out how to ensure that manufacturers and the companies can get their products in time, and hopefully people who are engineers and want to make stuff. Now's a good time to look at what we outsourced in the past, because we're talking to a lot of manufacturers now who realize that stuff I had in China I can't get for the next 6 months. So where do
Yeah.
I get it from? And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of small business now who are doing some of that. Now's a good time for you to go ask your supplier or your customers, hey, what else do you need from us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is so, so smart because again, you start to feel it. You know what I mean? Before we just go on to Amazon or any other marketplace and we order it and presto changeo, it's 2 days later. Actually, while we've been talking, my doorbell rang. I saw UPS drive by. Presto changeo, it's there. You know what I mean? But typically when I'm able to get a package in 24 hours or in 2 days, it's now taking a week, because you are going to have to start looking at that supply chain. So that is definitely something, a strategy that anybody that works in an industry that requires multiple parts to put together their whatever that package is, to really be looking at that. Because I know we have people that just get simple things that we take for granted, the wrapping that comes outside of your box, that reel of wrapping or that ream of wrapping that you get that typically came from China, you're not getting it anymore. So this is a great time for innovators, makers in our area, in the United States specifically,
Exactly.
to really start saying like, hey, I've always done this. You've not given me a shot because we couldn't compete with these rates, but now's the time. Now's the time to really also be strategic about how much you are charging for
Mhm.
those things. You know what I mean? So now that you have the market's attention, don't be greedy.
Yeah.
We've seen
So,
individuals get greedy.
and those are some of the new normal, because of beside technology, but said the supply network has been severely disrupted, and so
Yeah. Yeah.
there's lots of opportunity within that sector, which involves trucking, delivery services, technology, software, innovation, customer service, back offices. So I mean, there's so much that goes on, payroll. So all those services are going to start changing as we speak. So and you start trying to, if you're in that field, I mean, it can be so broad because there's a lot of technology that has to happen to make those things work,
Sure.
telecommunications and all that. So it's going to be a brave new world. I mean,
It
and hey,
is.
we have weathered these things in the past. We will come out on top. It's going to be a little painful, but I think the country has always rebounded. So I'm,
Yeah.
keeping my fingers crossed. I'm doing my part. I'm talking to my colleagues across the country, locally, how we can, um, put together great ideas locally, nationally, and finding ways to make things work better and improve everybody's quality of life. End of the day, from the lowest to the highest in terms of economic scale, you got to include everybody in this pie.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I absolutely love that. And that is an amazing way to conclude this episode because we are our brother's keeper. And so we need to stay safe. We need to stay indoors, stay inside,
Yeah.
but do our part to take care of our world. Because this is all we have, you know what I mean? But it's also that time to come out with those skills, a new knowledge, that project that you've had, sitting in the attic for all these years, dusting that off and really become the maker that we can all be, So I absolutely appreciate that. You have been so amazing. I thank you so, so much because you left us with that nugget of hope, is that this is the worst of times. You know what I mean? In no one's lifetime have we seen a situation like this, but we can get through this. You know, again, if we do our parts, if we take care of each other, if we take care of ourselves, and we just get really strategic about how we're getting through this. I've realized I've stopped waking up with dread and gloom, because the first few weeks, I was just like, why? And now I'm waking up with a lot more purpose. I'm seeing that before the alarm clock can go off, I'm already like, all right, let's get this
Yeah.
going, you know. But we're getting accustomed to it. So shake it off. We're here. We're doing this together. I thank you so much for taking time out of your day to meet with us and just to offer some hope and perspective to us as small business owners of how we're going to get through this pandemic. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate your time and looking forward to seeing this. But hey, one of the things to say here in Michigan City would say hashtag Michigan City strong. So I'll say hashtag USA strong. We got to
USA
stick
strong.
together
I love
and keep it moving forward. So
it. Together we're going to move forward, which is so interesting you bring up your hashtag, because that brings me to the end of our episode. We always leave each and every episode with a shameless shout out. So do you have a shameless shout out? Follow you on LinkedIn. This is what the project that we're working on. Visit our city whenever we reopen. Anything that you would like to
hey,
shout out.
follow us on Facebook, EDCMC, Michigan City, EDC. Follow us on the website, edcmc.com. We got lots of great projects. We got a beach on the beach in Indiana. All from Chicago. We got the winery, microbreweries, about 30 ethnic restaurants in the downtown, and we got about 3 large apartment complex being built in the downtown. Future train station within the next 3 years. So come on along, enjoy us. Have a casino if you want to come and spend some money too,
Hey.
on outlet mall. So hey, come on down to Michigan City. We're here to help you out, have a good time, but also if you want to invest and see your money grow, come on down.
Come on down. I love it. I love going to you all's beaches and being able to see the Chicago shoreline. I mean, absolutely beautiful. The lighthouses, the food, the culture. It was an easy drive from where I was. It's a mid-city beach. I mean, a Midwestern beach, and an opportunity to get, you know, not have to go to a coastline. It was absolutely
Exactly.
beautiful. So I appreciate you shouting out the city, because it is gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
Thank you guys again for joining us for this episode of Stimulus Sundays. As always, please make sure you join us every single Sunday, and even for a bonus feature. And you can find all of our episodes, past and current, on our YouTube channel at thefailuereport.com, which is my other blog post and web podcast. I meant to say podcast. And web series that will be starting season 2 in June sometime. You know, life is so fluid right now. June is coming soon. Just stay tuned for when that comes out. But please, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for doing your part. And we're in this together. You're not alone. We're here for you guys. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.